York City. The city that never sleeps. The city so nice they named it twice. The concrete jungle. The place with the best dang hot dog that you'll ever put in your mouth. New York has a lot of nicknames, and nearly everyone describes it perfectly in its own way because there's so much to see, so much to do, so much that you could become. And during spring break of 2017, our school's theater department got the opportunity to experience a bite of the Big Apple. Let me catch you up on our journey. March 31st, a late Friday night. After about 21 hours of either waiting on, eating on, or riding in the bus, we get our first glimpse of the place that so many of us were so eager to see for such a long time. Well, not really. Yes, everyone was excited to finally be there, but when we drove into the border of New York, through Staten Island, and then along the coast of Brooklyn, you couldn't see a single thing that was more than about 50 feet ahead of you. The fog was thick. So, first we went to the hotel, unloaded our luggage from the bus, and gave ourselves about 2 hours of rest before we all got back on to see Times Square before the night was over. And although it had been raining pretty much the whole day before we got there, Times Square looked beautiful. The mesmerizing lights, all the theaters and shops, the liveliness of the foot traffic, all these vibes and aspects of the place made it look seriously so pretty. I would even say that the glossy reflections on the streets from the rain made it look even prettier. I took a bunch of photos while we were walking around, seeing a few theaters that were running the most popular shows. After everyone had a while to look around, we headed back to the hotel and called it a night. That was day 0.5. At the start of day 1, I was greeted with better views of the Manhattan skyline than I ever expected from the hotel that we were in. After breakfast, we headed to Lower Manhattan and rode our way through Chinatown to get to Battery Park. On our way, we got a chance to take in a few of the sights that some roads of Manhattan had to offer. We got on a ferry to visit the Statue of Liberty, and it was really crowded up there at the pedestal because the space to walk was so cramped. I still managed to get a few cool photos. Next, we visited the 9/11 Memorial and Museum. It was really depressing and gloomy. The environment didn't affect everyone's moods, but I stayed respectful and appropriate while we were there. There was no photography allowed, but the museum had really interesting artifacts and witness reports and a scale model replica of what the Twin Towers looked like before the attack. That part was the most interesting to me. At the end of the night, we did shopping and dinner in Times Square again, which we did visit a lot. I got a stomachache, so the tour director walked me to a store to get a banana, which gave me a good chance to look at the parts of the city that weren't filled with a bunch of tourists, and it was pretty awesome, and the banana was pretty tasty too. But anyways, that concluded day 1. Day 2 began, and gladly the weather was much better, and I was greeted with this beautiful view when I woke up. This time, we started off the day by going to the world-renowned Apollo Theater, and we learned quite a bit about the place. The Apollo was built in 1914 and was originally a strip club burlesque house, which is pretty weird. However, around 1932, the mayor of New York City created legislation that required licenses to keep burlesque houses opened, which had shut down the building's previous operations, and the building was eventually put up for sale. Later, in 1934, 3 Jewish brothers bought the property and named it the Apollo Theater after the Greek god of entertainment. The Apollo had quite a lot of influence for New York's Harlem Renaissance. It gave the city a new perspective of the black population and their ability to create and entertain the masses. Most theaters in New York City back then didn't even allow people of color into their doors. They were looked down upon by many of the white people in the area. Part of the reason being that many of them believed that blacks were unable to perform well. This all changed on January 26, 1934, when Rob Cooper hosted the Amateur Night. This was the first event at the Apollo opening their doors to amateurs, and it was the first time ever that blacks were allowed in the theater. From that day forward, everyone of every race got a chance and found their start at becoming the next big thing in the music industry. Tons and tons of famous musicians from the past 60 years have at one point performed on the Apollo Theater stage. This includes the Jackson 5, Marvin Gaye, Mariah Carey, James Brown, and Ella Fitzgerald, who was the first female to win amateur night at the Apollo. Shout out to the man who told us all these stories, Mr. Apollo. He says that he's been working with every single one of these celebrities and the theater for over 50 years. That's pretty impressive. Afterwards, Mr. Apollo let some of the students from our school perform on the stage of the Apollo Theater. Here's some photos. Later on, we drove back down the island to the theater district to see a Broadway musical going by the title of Kinky Boots. The show was amazing to me, and the experience of seeing a live professional musical that was that top-notch was one of the best parts of the trip. After the show, we got the opportunity to go backstage on one of the biggest shows on Broadway, The Lion King. Jelani Remy, the actor who plays Simba, gave us a quick tour around the set, and we even got a chance to ask him about his experience in theater and what we could do to be in the same position as him someday. Jelani told us the top 3 qualities for success in theater and on Broadway were the education that you gain, the opportunities that you receive, and the fact that you need to have passion for the art of theater. Starting around $1,450 a week, the pay for certain shows isn't the best that could be offered in New York City, but he says the money you earn shouldn't be your main motivator or goal for making it to Broadway. He also told us that it's best to be polite as possible, because in showbiz, reputation is everything. Once we finished the great talk with Jelani, we went to a huge barbecue restaurant nearby and I got this nice time lapse. We ate and then walked around Times Square where we saw these awesome street performers doing awesome flips. Seriously, it was pretty cool. A few hours later, we were back at the hotel and ended day 2. Day 3 was equally as great as all of the others. We visited one of the top theater schools in the country, New York University's Tisch School of the Arts. We had a Q&A session with one of the casting directors who worked at the college and gained some insight on how to get in and how NYU trains their students to their full potential. We learned that there were actually 4 types of theater programs that you could audition for. There's the acting division, which calls for 2 contrasting monologues and a conversation with the audition director. The musical theater division auditions are just the same, except you also need a singing and dancing evaluation. The directing division of the school requires 1 monologue, your directing portfolio review, and a conversation about your director's notebook, which shows them your thought process on how you direct your plays. Finally, the production division is similar to the directing division, except you just swap out the word direct with produce. Once you're accepted into the college, your first 2 years would be primary training, with 3 arts days and 2 academic days for Tisch students. Your 2 upper-level training years will give you more freedom of choice in what you study, for example, film or stage combat. But regarding the audition process, they want you to be completely comfortable and open so they can review the real you and see exactly how they can teach you what you want and need to learn. NYU Tisch wants to discover where you are in your own artistic development. There's no comparison to other students. We also talked to a student who attends NYU named Jennifer, who came from Georgia, just like us. She told us that if we have a goal in mind that you'd want to achieve, all you need to do to make it happen is to just do it. Afterwards, we walked to lunch at this nice contemporary Italian place. And then comes the awesome part, the Subway. Oh my god, I love the NYC Subway. I know it sounds weird, but I was so excited to ride the train and I had so much fun. Our group made a quick stop at the Empire State Building, and then we got on the Subway again! Okay, I'll stop now. I ate a hot dog from one of the food stands on the sidewalk, and it was very nice. By the end of the day, we rode to Dave & Buster's, ate food, played games, and went to a gift shop one last time before returning to the hotel to finish day 3. And that concluded our trip to New York City. It was simply amazing and I jump at the chance to go again. And that's all that I have left for this video. So,
I just want to